Hello and welcome to my discussion on the transgressive act of ritualistic crimes. What are ritualistic crimes, you ask? Why are they committed? How are they committed? Do you have to be a certain type of individual to commit this crime? Today I will be attempting to answer these questions, so if you're a true crime fan who isn't afraid of a little gore, stay tuned. Now, before we delve into what defines a ritualistic crime, we must first understand what transgression means. Transgression originates from Christian medieval times, whereby if you were to break the biblical commandments, then you were seen as a transgressor. Despite the fact that morality is not universal and different cultures have different ways of life, transgression is still very much prominent in most societies today. The laws that each society create very much dictate how we behave, and these boundaries almost act as a metaphorical container that stop us fearing and in most cases committing certain crimes. However, with new laws and obligations come more opportunities to transgress. We tend to obey these rules because we know that the laws binding society together protect us from being harmed. This is reinforced by punishing those who cross them. This type of rebellious behaviour is known as being transgressive. So, we know that laws dictate boundaries within society, but what about the blurred lines? What about when boundaries are crossed? Even though we have these rules, there are still crimes being committed across the globe, and I'm not just talking about stealing a loaf of bread from your local shop. Murder, violence, drugs, robbery, the list goes on. Ritualistic crimes are just one example of how people violate the moral and social conduct of society. Rituals and transgression are related, despite the doubt we cast upon the relationship. However, when we think of rituals, we automatically think of collective, integrative actions with positive outcomes. For example, religious rituals and the Durkheimian notions of solidarity that rituals bring. This is not always the case, however, as rituals can also bring with them disintegration and negative outcomes such as violence and murder. Now, ritual crime doesn't just exist for the purpose of magic and voodoo, it actually exists in the modern day 21st century. There is a real lack of understanding surrounding ritualistic crimes within law enforcement, as they are typically referred to as occult crimes, which is arguably inaccurate and very misleading. The term cult automatically connotes something evil or toxic, as we immediately think about Satanism or a dark ritualistic group of individuals who commit heinous crimes, but the reality is that the term cult can also be applied to many non-violent, even religious practices. Dawn Perlmutter, a forensic psychologist with a niche interest in this area, summarizes in her own words what ritualistic crime is in her book surrounding the topic. Ritualistic crime is most precisely defined as any act of violence characterized by a series of repeated physical, sexual, and/or psychological actions combined with a systematic use of symbols, ceremonies, and/or machinations. The need to repeat such acts can be cultural, sexual, economic, psychological, and/or spiritual. Let's take it back to a period of history before secularization took place. We are going to take a look into ancient historical rituals bound with cathartic releases of tension and anxiety, and how these rituals are embedded within those historical societies. One example is the Aztec sacrifices of the 14th to the 16th centuries. The Aztecs believed in many gods and deities, however, the most important god was Huitzilopochtli, the god of sun and war who demanded blood in order to be appeased. This therefore led to the daily ritual of bloodletting and human sacrifice for Aztecs. If the ritual was not completed daily, it was believed the sun would not rise the next day. Now this may seem strange to us in contemporary Western society, however, do these sacrifices differ from that of a serial killer's motives? Even the Neanderthals who lived in the valley near Krapina in Croatia are believed to have practiced a form of ritual through the means of consumption and sacrifice. Archaeological digs from around 130,000 years ago have shown that they were cannibals due to the bones being found in arrangements and broken with tooth marks. This suggests that these people did not die of natural causes, but were rather perhaps ritualistically murdered by their peers. Not all violent ritualistic crimes are performed within the premises of religion or ancient rituals, as some serial killers use ritualistic methods but are in no way religious. A more accurate expression for these crimes would be ritualistic crime, because it encompasses the ritual side of crimes without narrowing it down to cults or religion alone. Now, you're probably wondering how serial killers and ritualistic crime link, but ritualism is an element in a number of serial killings, as well as cultural representations of such crimes. Serial killers use something called a modus operandi, which is a habit or method they use each time they kill, and this is often why they eventually get caught, because it means they become more and more repetitive in their behaviours. This is a form of a ritual, just the same as religion, where they sing hymns, or a cult who recites a mantra. For example, Jeffrey Dahmer, also known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, believed that he could ritualistically turn his 17 male victims into homosexual zombies, purely for the purpose of keeping himself company. As he said in interviews, he did not like the idea of them having to leave him, and he also liked feeling in control of someone. His habits started off with dissecting small bugs and animals, as Dahmer admitted that he wanted to see how they, quote, fitted together, end quote. His dad further confirmed that growing up Dahmer was intrigued by bones. This fascination led to Dahmer progressing on to humans. He would lure young men, sometimes even boys, into a discreet place where he could rape, murder, and dissect them. He would keep the skulls and bones in acid to preserve them, and eventually Dahmer had rooms in his home filled with the remains of his 17 victims. He would converse with the skulls, eat the remains of his corpses, masturbate over them, and even take photos with them. The final straw for Dahmer was a man called Tracy Edwards, who, like the other 16 males, was lured by Dahmer into the apartment. However, his quick intuition meant he was able to figure out the motives behind the killer, and he managed to escape. He informed the police of what he saw, eventually leading to the arrest of the Milwaukee Cannibal. So, why did Jeffrey Dahmer commit such sickening acts? The irony is that he was obsessed with having control, but was unable to control his obsession. A chilling jailhouse interview with Dahmer revealed what it was like to be inside his brain. Dahmer described his urges as compulsions, which brought about excitement for him. The word compulsions further confirming that he was a ritualistic killer. Dahmer received little attention at home, which is believed to be the catalyst to his problems. His psychologist stated that growing up with a dysphoric family like Dahmer's could be the potential explanation as to why he felt such a need for company later on down the line. However, Dahmer stated in the jailhouse interview that he gets, quote, angry, end quote, at those who blame his parents. Cases like Dahmer make us really question human nature and what urges individuals like him to perform criminal rituals. As Perlmutter states, there are multiple explanations as to why, and I am going to explore further into this. The main theory behind ritualistic crimes is the idea of how catharsis and rituals release anxieties within us. For example, people with OCD tend to perform rituals such as cleaning or obsessively performing actions such as switching lights on and off. Sigmund Freud argued that ritual behavior arises from the repression of instinctual impulses or threatening wishes. He believed that the obsessive and repetitive nature of neuroses are reflected in religious ritual. In his psychoanalytic view of religion, he stated that our unconscious mind craves wish fulfillment, and religion fulfills this particular need. He even went as far as to argue that religion was the seat of mental health problems. However, he did also recognize that rituals can act as deflection of anxiety. So, what can we take from this discussion on ritual crimes? Here you can see my 4 fundamental conclusion points. Firstly, we have discovered that transgression and rituals go hand in hand when it comes to killing, sacrifice, and consumption. Secondly, ritualistic crimes are hard to define and often get misconstrued with phrases like occult groups, when this is not always the case. Third of all, rituals still exist in contemporary modern society despite being derived from mythical and satanic origins. And finally, my last conclusion is to remember that although rituals are involved with serial killings, they are not always based on occult or religious belief systems. Rather, they are more personal decisions sometimes, for instance, Dharma and his obsession over control or having company. This concludes my presentation on ritualistic crimes. Thank you for listening.